See, Matt, are you ready?
I am.
Being the appointed hour, I hereby call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Matt, would you have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Candace Sullivan.
Present.
Jim Morrison.
Here.
Annette Stone.
Here.
Tripp Urick.
Here.
Tim Thompson.
Here.
Molly Bales.
Here.
And Tony Bryant.
Present.
And Ruth Cox and Jim Bisbee are excused.
Okay. And I didn't see any minutes in our folder online, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we'll skip that part of things.
Thank you.
The Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It is responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside, using U.S. Department of Interior standards, state statutes, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic district guidelines. Two of the major tasks of the HPC include approving applications for a certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HPC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who receive notice of the hearing, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion that cannot be directly related to specific historic guidelines. Likewise, Commissioners shall refrain from stating personal opinion, personal likes or dislikes, or hearsay during a hearing. The Commission's decision on an application is based solely on the testimony and evidence presented at a hearing that directly relates to the historic guidelines. So with that, Matt, can we swear in our speakers this evening?
Certainly. Okay. Anyone who would like to speak, please come forward. All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge? All right. And you have already mentioned your name and your address.
See, Matt, and while we're signing in, are all our applications appearing tonight to your knowledge that are on the agenda?
I do not know. We could poll the audience, I suppose. I know someone is, the applicant is here from 715 East Front. Is there someone representing 507 George Street here?
Yeah, I see Chris.
And 404 Avenue B.
Okay, great. All right. In summary, this is how we would generally conduct a hearing on a COA application. The HPC administrator provides an overview of the application. The applicant presents the application. Proponents and opponents who receive notice of the hearing can present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information and will be directly affected can present evidence. Then the HPC administrator presents staff findings and recommendations. The applicant has an opportunity to make final comments on their application. The Commission will discuss evidence and may ask for clarification from the applicant. Chairman, ultimately, once the discussion is wound down, we'll call for a motion to approve or deny the application with stated findings of fact. Then motion will be discussed by the Commission, and then we'll call for a vote. So a COA can either be approved with conditions, or denied. So with that said, Matt, if you could, 715 East Front Street appears to be our first item of business tonight.
That's correct. Okay, I'll start the application here. Whoa. Technical difficulties already. Okay, here's the beginning of the application. 715 East Front Street. Property owner is George Aiken, and the applicants is Go Architectural Design, Sarah Afflerbach. And you can see the application is filled out and checked off and signed by the applicant's representative, which is here duly noted on their owner's authorization to represent Mr. Aiken. And these first two images are very large. Okay, so this gives you an idea of the existing condition, at least several months ago. When they took this image, we're talking about this house with no roof on it. As some of you were involved with and some are new to this, the demolition of this building was approved by the HPC several months ago, 6 months ago approximately. However, the COA was not issued at that time because our rules require that the replacement be approved before the demolition may begin. And so tonight we are talking about the replacement. So here we have plans for the replacement. This is the first sheet, which gives you a thumbnail sketch of the front. I can make these bigger now. And these are photographs of the existing site, pretty much from left to right. The center one is actually the site, and on the left you see the house to the left, and on the right you see the house to the right of the site. And then here is more of a panoramic shot, which gives you a shot all the way down the street to the left, to the south, and then to the right or to the north. And you can even see Queens Point on the right here as well. So to give you the context, they've also provided the floor plan, this being the site plan actually, and the site plan shows that the structure is shifted slightly to the south side in order to afford a 10-foot space for vehicular access along the top edge to the garage, which is at the rear of the property. The garage is a detached garage, and otherwise to note on this site plan is a little bit of paving and stairs and such. The setbacks and the HVAC units on raised platform. So, also that the front steps are right at the setback line for the property, not at the property line, so it's about 5 to 6 feet away from the back of the sidewalk. So this provides some context in plan view of how the proposal would fit into the fabric of the streetscape. So noted of importance are the next door neighbors, the ones to the south. The rectangle on the front represents the porch. And then this crosshatched area at the front of the plan represents the porch on this project. And then the next property to the north shows the bulk of the building shown in that shape, that irregular shape there. The porches aren't noted on this one, but essentially they are where this little jog is happening. So they also have a porch on the front. Also, farther down the street, there are porches on the front as well. We go down this way. And then across the street, there's a porch on that house as well, but doesn't show as a separate rectangle, and then all of the Queens Point porches and such. So there's a lot of those around. Okay, so then this is the floor plan for the project. The inside, not so much of our concern, but rather, say, the front porch configuration and size, and the way the steps are configured. And then we'll see what these look like in elevation view as well. And then out the back, also another porch with actually 2 levels, separated by 3 steps here, and then another set of stairs to the backyard. And then from the mudroom in the back corner, also a separate set of stairs. So 2 sets of stairs out the back. There's also a pool shown here as well. That's what this rectangle is. All right, so that gives you the first floor plan. Second floor plan is a smaller floor. And so from here you see all the roof configurations for the first floor, for the 1-story portions of the first floor. Plus, apparently, that back porch is not a porch with a deck. Because we don't have a roof over that. And then there is actually a 3rd level for a den and a bathroom up there for a small area up there. Oh, and this is the full set of plans for the garage, 2-car garage. Garage door on the north side, 3 windows on the south side, a person door on the west and on the east. The east side door actually has a small little porch, which we see on the elevation here in the middle bottom. You can see the side of it from the south side, and then also the top illustration shows it from the north side. You can see this is a pyramidal roof. There's no ridge, just all 4 corners meet at one point. The plan is a square. The windows, 3 windows here are not horizontal. And it includes flood vents. The siding is horizontal board, hardy board lap siding. And let's see, we have more information about the windows. I don't know, it must be the same as on the house. It's a standing seam metal roof, metal garage doors, and the columns at AZEC, wrapped columns and trim. Okay, so for the main house, or the house, this is the front view enlarged, and we can see the front porch is prominent on the front. The height of the foundation above ground is the minimum and maximum required height. I checked to make sure what the flood elevation is there, and this floor level would be appropriate for this flood zone. No more, no less. And then the other things to note that are somewhat different from what we've already pointed out are the handrails, painted metal railing and pickets. For the stairway, the railing on the porch is AZEC railing and pickets. Let's see what else we have. That's it on that one. Okay, and then this on the right-hand side, now this is looking at the back of the house, where we have that deck I was talking about with the 2-level deck, and then the stairway off the mudroom. The doorway on the left is for the mudroom, and we have a series of all very similar windows on this elevation. And then we'll scroll down, we'll see the sides. So this would be the southern elevation. The porch, front porch is on the front. You can kind of have a better idea as to how large the porch is from this, as well as the, the porch stoop for the top of the stairway or the stairway landing. And here we have the hardy board siding again, but in the gable we have the hardy board shakes. And there's a small pent, standing seam pent between the two to create a soffit along here. And we can see also the flood vents and foundation here. Whereas out on the front, I forgot to mention the brick pattern out front is actually, the black dots are actually gaps, air gaps. So the brick is stacked in a lattice pattern, which is a typical pattern for New Bern. And then the back deck, here we have all AZEC railing and pickets, but it looks like we have some lattice work underneath that, is that correct? And 6 and 12 pitch roof on the main house and 4 and 12 on the one-story wing. Remember, there was a third story, so that third story has one window on this end. And then on the other side, one window on the other side as well. Again, all the windows very similar. And now we see the porch from the north side, where we now see the stairway leading up to the stairway landing or stoop. And nothing else significantly different on this side. And then these are some of the details for the window and the railings. And I just zoomed through a bunch of pages. And let's see, so here we have, as soon as I enlarge it, this is the zoning and inspections review form. And you can see that here at the bottom, the zoning administrator says it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance, and the chief building inspector, sorry, I don't know why this is doing this, but I just have it set wrong. Chief and building inspector says it will require a building permit, of course, and the AE flood zone, or the RFPE, is 11 feet above sea level. And so that reflects what they have designed here. And then we're ready with our findings and recommendations.
Okay. Let's see. Sarah, as a representative of the applicant, do you have anything you want to add? All right. Is there anyone who's received notification who would like to speak either for or against the application? And I don't see any. And so at this point, last chance for comments, Sarah? And if you have none, Matt, can you go over the recommendation?
All right. Now that I fixed that, we'll make it so we can see it. There we go. All right, so this is our recommendations for the project for George Aiken and Go Architectural Design. The project address is 715 East Front Street, and the historic property name and date is the Bengal House, built in circa 1950. However, this is has approved to be demolished. So the National Register inventory description is not relevant, and Sandbank had no description of it anyway. So 715 East Front Street is to include construction of a new infill house and rear detached garage. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. For the development pattern, 2.1.1, 2, and 3. For utilities, 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6. For landscaping, 2.4.3, 4, and 7. For parking, 2.7.4. For design principles, 3.1.1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. For infill construction, 3.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. For foundations, 1.3 and 4. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 and 3. For entrances, 4.4.4. For roofs, 4.5.6. For masonry, 5.1.3, 5, and 6. For metals, 5.3.3 and 4. For paint, 5.4.2, 3, 4, and 6. For contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, and 3, and 5 and 6. And the statements of reason based on the information contained in the application in staff's judgment are: the project is located in the tight weave development pattern. The proposal is an infill project. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include construction of a 2-story infill house and rear detached garage with the following condition. This COA is not valid and construction may not begin until the applicant provides to the HPA the drawings, details, and descriptions of the utilities, driveway, fencing, exterior lighting, and landscaping for this project, and the HPA has reviewed the information and approves by issuing an amended COA or as a separate COA the installation of said utilities, driveway, fencing, lighting, and landscaping. If the COA for this proposal is approved and the COA is approved to be issued, the HPC should consider the following: a follow-up motion. The staff recommends the commission approve issuing the COA for the demolition of the existing structure, however, with the condition that the demolition may not proceed until the following requirements are met. 1, building permits are approved for the redevelopment of the parcel. 2, drawings of the structure are submitted to the HPA, which was a prerequisite or was a requirement for demolition. And 3 is documentation is submitted to the HPA regarding the applicant's notification to preservation organizations and allowing for the salvage of design components, architectural features, and building materials for reuse. That ends our recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much. So commissioners, again, just to reiterate, this is a 2-step approval process. Some of you prior to your tenure on the board missed the first step, but the board has acted to approve the demolition previously, so don't let that confuse us. And so at this point, we're evaluating the redevelopment plan. I will bring to your attention, we've got a list of boxes to check. I think it's on page 1-15 of our guidelines. If that helps us get organized, we're talking about infill construction. And that being said, where would we like to start this evening?
Mr. Chairman, I would propose that you walk us through the evaluation worksheet.
All right, we can do that. So let's start with site and
If you'd
setting.
like, I can pull that up on the screen here in a second.
Yes, page 1-15, if I'm not mistaken.
If anyone needs a copy of that, I have a copy.
There you go.
So we're under the 3rd column, infill construction, and let's focus our discussion on site and setting and talk a little bit about development pattern and maybe placement of structures. I think landscaping is coming back to us at a future time. Somebody like to take a stab at that? Or does anyone have questions in regard to site and setting for the applicant?
Certainly the mass scale, proportion, dimension seems to meet the guidelines based on surrounding structures.
It's not inconsistent looking up and down the street.
Okay.
Parking has been, I think parking has been addressed
Yeah.
as far as driveway, as far as garage access.
I don't recall any fencing.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So you're saying that we have to bring fencing back even though we're not proposing it? I'm unclear.
No. Landscaping, I would presume you would be coming back.
Because when we were at design review, and we were discussing landscaping, it was said that we could bring it back to you all at a later date, but you're saying that the COA would not be approved without that landscaping plan being approved? I'm just not clear on.
Well,
I heard it, Sarah, that it was with either a new or amended application. That's what I heard.
And it can always be a condition.
Yes.
yeah, we'll sort that out with conditions.
I just
But,
want to be clear.
Again, our intent isn't to make this any more complicated than we've already made it for
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank
All right.
you.
Okay, any other site and setting comments from commissioners? And Tim alluded to some scale, mass, and proportion in terms of design attributes. Any other comments in regard to form, rhythm?
Well, there's
For the
variations
fenestration.
in texture that add some design elements to it.
Okay, it's obvious in the elevation under design components. We've got articulation of foundations, wall trim, and ornamentation. Also windows, doors, and openings.
Well, one of the things that we look at with residential construction, typically window trim, corner boards, so forth, all that seems to be appropriate with the guidelines. The hardy shakes, we certainly have houses in New Bern that use hardy shakes, standing seam metal roof. And I think one of the questions I asked previously, perfectly flat panels, with a standing seam metal roof, no corrugation.
Any other comments in that area? All right. Materials and being infill construction, we've got a little more leeway than we might otherwise with a contributing structure.
So I have a question
Yes.
on that, and maybe it's just I'm not familiar so much yet with AZAC, and are we're using that, or is that being used on some of the other new houses? Is it composite?
Absolutely, yeah.
Googled it here real quick. It's some sort of composite.
It's a composite board, and it's used on the trim work for most of the houses at River Station, and so it's a pretty typical and appropriate material,
Kind of commonly used now.
commonly used, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's also got a pretty good history at this point.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe 15 years or more.
Yeah, as far as warping and structural stability.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Now, based on our design review, is everybody comfortable that any changes that were requested have been accommodated, or anything we need to talk about there?
Did you go to materials? Or something else?
We did, but we can revisit it.
Just a quick question, Sarah. The front porch, is it intended to be, I didn't notice on the design, so I'm sorry. Is it masonry or wood stairs, or the front
The-
porch going up?
Those are masonry steps on the front,
Yeah.
and with the front piece of it is pushed out a little bit, and then the main part of the porch has the masonry
The
columns
sideways
with the
stairs
brick
up and then. yeah.
weave in between. But yeah, the front steps are masonry, the rear steps are not. Yeah.
So this has been a pretty easy conversation so far. It seems like our fellow commissioners are pretty satisfied. We must have had a pretty good talk at design review. I apologize for not being
You're a
there.
very good board, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
She's applying traditional methods and materials and styles and all those things very well.
So yeah, it seems like we're hitting the highlights of the New Bern vernacular pretty well. So maybe with that said, either we can launch into some other interesting discussion, or perhaps we're ready to have a motion. Well, I think just one initially, in our usual manner. And there were some conditions recommended. And I'll leave that up to your choosing.
So, I would find the application for, what's the around here? 715 East Front Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinances, sections 15.411 through 15.429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. All these. Okay, so, development pattern. Am I doing this right? We're not doing the other COA first, there's not two, was this one?
The other demolition part has been completed
Okay.
previously.
Okay,
So you're right on track.
We're on this one, okay, development pattern, got it.
That is correct.
Okay,
Yes, we have one COA to cover both.
there you go, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so development pattern, 2.1.1, 2, and 3. Utilities, 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6. Landscaping, 2.4, 3, 4, and 7. Parking, 2.7.4. Design principles, 3.1.1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Infill construction, 3.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. Foundations, 4.1, 3, 4, and 4. Walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2, 3, and 3. Entrances, 4.4.4. Roofs, 4.5.6. Masonry, 5.1.3, 5, and 6. Metals, 5.3.3 and 4. Paint, 5.4.2, 3, 4, and 6. Contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. And the findings of fact are that the project is located in the tightly development pattern. The proposal is an infill project. The proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and the project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Okay. And are you condition-free?
Condition on they come back with the landscaping plan, the COA be issued and at some point they come back with the landscaping plan.
Okay.
I don't want the COA to be conditioned on that. I don't want to hold
Okay.
up the COA for landscaping.
Okay. So we'll talk about that here shortly. We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. And so is everybody clear on the motion? And maybe not so clear on the condition. And so, Annette, I think what you're suggesting is utilities, any type of improved driveway, fencing, lighting, and landscaping are ultimately to come back in the future at some point.
Yes. Yes.
But not necessarily a condition
Not
of
hold up
tonight's
the
COA.
COA, exactly.
Okay, so,
And there's more.
and then I see council giving me a funny look.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure if I heard your comment to Commissioner Stone.
I believe Annette's intent is to provide, to have utilities, an improved driveway, fencing, lighting, and landscaping to come back since they're not adequately covered in tonight's application as a separate COA, and not to hold up issuance of a COA tonight for
Does that
the,
include the follow-up motion, or is that separate?
well, that deals with our next item of business, so let's,
I
we'll
would
tackle
like-
that in a
I
minute.
would like to suggest that there should at least be some condition regarding screening the mechanical units. Because those are proposed and will be constructed. and are required to be screened.
So I'll make that condition that the utilities be screened and the screening be approved by staff.
Okay. Matt, are you okay?
Yep.
All right,
Perfect.
board members, are we okay? And so we'll need I forgot who seconded our motion, but we'll need somebody to approve that change. Tim?
Second the changes.
Okay. So now that we're all on the same page, maybe, any other discussion? No?
I don't know where the follow-up motion comes
It
in.
has to do with the issuance of the COA.
Okay.
I get it now.
Yeah, it's confusing. I had to read it.
Did this, okay.
Couple
Gotta
times,
do
so.
this, gotta do this, then.
All right. So I don't hear any other discussion. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So at this point, do we have a motion to issue a
So moved.
certificate of appropriateness, and staff suggests doing so with condition?
I move we issue the certificate of appropriateness for 715 East Front Street with the condition that screening be defined for all utilities prior to,
Oh, we already did that in the previous one.
So there's,
so there's no conditions on
well, there's
COA?
three
So-
items
so
that
the-
Now this is
suggested.
the follow-up motion.
I'm sorry, so we're,
That's the follow-up motion.
okay. What, I do want to discuss that.
Yep.
Because I think, do we really need to deal with number 3, which is the salvage of components on a building that's basically,
That would be up to the preservation organizations.
which are?
I know of one, but it could be 2 or 3, I don't know, but I know of one.
So it's their choice. Okay. Okay, I may move that we issue a COA for the demolition of the existing structure at 715 East Front Street with the condition that demolition may not proceed until the following requirements are met. Number 1, building permits are approved for the redevelopment of the parcel. Drawings of the structure are submitted to the HPC administrator. Documentation is, and number 3, documentation is submitted to the administrator regarding the applicant's notification to preservation organizations and allowing for the salvage of design components, architectural features, and building materials for reuse.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we've got a second. Any discussion? Well, okay, so no other discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now your question.
I'm just curious, the last item, item 3, I mean, I know you all have seen it, and there's really nothing in there, but we're happy to write those letters. Do you want to suggest to us who we should write those to, or do you want us to just Preservation Foundation and
That would be fine.
Swiss Bear, or?
Preservation
Preservation
Foundation.
Foundation.
Just
Sufficient.
Preservation
Just a
Foundation?
sufficient.
Okay, and, okay. Thank you.
We good? Okay.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So I think that concludes that item B.
No,
Thank you.
we did not yet vote to issue the COA for the infill house.
That's what I thought I was doing back when we
There's only
stopped.
one COA. We just issued it, did we not?
But that COA in the motion only
Is a
declares demolition.
There's a motion to
It
approve.
did
There's
not-
only one COA for both pieces.
That's right, but the language of that approval was only for the demolition, so it was half of what it needed to be.
Language for that
So there was a
approval.
motion approved for the infill, motion approved for the demolition.
Yeah.
So
I
now,
apologize, I'm
yes,
confused.
this is something that we don't do a whole lot, demolitions.
So we had a previous hearing, we approved the demolition.
Correct.
That's correct.
No
So that's-
COA was issued.
That's
Correct.
one of the
What-
4 approvals you need.
Yeah, you spelled it out here, and that's what I was reading.
And so at the last meeting, right,
Yeah.
okay, so let me summarize. At the last
Yeah.
meeting you approved, or not last meeting, at the whatever meeting 6 months ago, you approved demolition of the building. However, you did not approve issuing the COA because you're not allowed to do that until you approve the replacement project, which is what you did in your first motion this evening. However, normally you also have a motion to issue the COA for the new construction, which you have not yet done.
That's where I
Okay.
was headed.
That's what-
So our rules of procedure say once
When you
demolition
started
has
with
been
demolition.
approved, which was last meeting, and a redevelopment plan has been approved, which is this meeting, the HPC issues a single COA for both actions.
Right, but the language in that last motion did not include any mention of the infill house.
So we just need another
Okay.
motion to approve the COA for the infill
I
house.
see what
which is
you're saying.
Right,
If
right.
if you go back, if you go back.
Or redo the
I
last
understand.
one, either way.
So essentially,
Sorry, I did not realize that's what
So
you were
it-
trying to do, but
Well-
we started with demolition.
That's it.
so Jim, if you could humor me and go back, I think all we need to do is restate what you stated,
I move
except the
that
COA is for
We
the
issue
demolition.
the COA for 715 East Front Street and the language that do I have to repeat it all, I guess?
So-
Repeat it all?
I think Mr. Morrison's motion in this moment is to issue the COA
What you-
for the demolition of 715 East Front Street and the infill construction of the same,
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
the
we just
with the
mentioned that, but we gotta do
conditions
it again because
that
we
the
didn't have
building
right
permits
language.
are approved by, for the redevelopment of the parcel, drawings of all of the structure be submitted to the HPA, and documentation is submitted to the HPA regarding the applicant's notification to preservation organizations and allowing for the salvage of design components, architectural features, and building materials for
Yeah, but
reuse. Is that your motion, Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
So,
Do you want me to restate it? Okay.
who seconded? Candace.
And then we need a second.
Second again?
Second.
Candace seconded again. Okay, we have it now. We have it.
Have you got me in good shape?
Yes. we're now-
So do we need to vote again?
Yes.
All right. So does everybody understand the motion that now that we've included redevelopment in addition to demolition? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So it sounds like our COA has been issued.
Screen's just died.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yep, thank
Okay.
you.
Just in time.
Thanks for keeping it challenging.
I think we just have to wait for the screens. If you want, I can go on if you'd like.
And our next
There we go.
item, I believe, is 507 George Street.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, so this is the application for 507 George Street. The property owner is Monique Taylor, and the applicant is Walker Group, Chris Walker, for the Walker Group. Mr. Walker, I may have missed an email or two from you. Did you provide us with your owner's authorization to represent them? Okay, it's in the emails? It's in an email? Okay. I suppose I need to find that. There we go. And there we have it, and it's duly notarized. Okay, thank you. Wasn't that cool how we can do that? All right, so the rest of their application continues with a lot of description for the various parts of the project, describing the primary area of visual concern, secondary, south elevation, north elevation, and tertiary elevation, and then listing all of the guidelines here in their entirety. Okay, so let's go right to the drawings. Okay. Oops, sorry. All right. So the cover sheet for the drawing shows the exterior of the front of the building, and then a site aerial view with the project circled. On George Street, you can see it's between New and Queen Street, and it's on the west side. And has two neighbors with some space between them. Okay. So more photographs of the existing building now. So going on the left-hand side of the building, this is the front half of that building, and this middle one is the back half of the left side, showing the porch that's been added to this side of the building and is proposed to be demolished. And then from the back, this is again that left side of the building, or the south side of the building, again with the porch shown here, and this is a two-story portion of the existing building, will be important later. Then the right side of the building is shown in the lower left, with, I should probably note, so the two-story portion continues to the back, and then there is a one-story portion at the very back, which then turns 90 degrees, it looks like onto this neighboring property, but the property line comports to that. And so that's what we see here on the middle picture, is that one-story addition that looks like it's projecting onto the neighbor's property. And so from the front, the bottom right picture shows you the front with that entire right side and the neighbor's chain link fence. So they also provided some photographs of similar buildings nearby, some of them on the same block and some somewhat farther away. We need to, we can come back to those. So here's the site plan. The existing house is shown here with the gray roof, and the existing porch has got the red roof here. If you remember from the photographs, there were two chimneys. They're shown here with their shadows onto the roof. And that little L piece onto the neighbor, quote unquote, onto the neighbor's property is shown here in the upper portion with this gray square. And the black line around the green area represents the property line. So the property line actually does jog over for that little bit of addition. So then this is showing the future site plan with some additional decks on the back, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and some additional driveway material, or walkway material from the end of the driveway. Also to note is that they're proposing a new wood fence around the entire property in the back here, and then that wood fence stops short of the front corner of the house and comes across the driveway, and we will see that too. All right. So this is the existing floor plan, because this is going to be some renovations on this project. So the first floor plan is on the bottom here, and you can see it is an L-shaped plan with that little addition that I mentioned at the back. Also shows the existing front porch and front porch steps, the two chimneys at the bottom. Here they're showing that the existing porch is to be demolished, and then therefore also they show all the roofing on the back, which is relatively flat, but standing seam metal roof is also to be removed in order to add a second floor addition. So I'm going to go back and forth a little bit. Let's go back to the second floor again. Notice how the second floor is a rectangle that ends right about at the second chimney here. When we come down to the next one, the second floor now extends past that second chimney. They have indicated the former end of that second floor here with the dashed line. So all of this area up here is now new interior space. So they're adding a second floor addition onto the back of the house to create a two-story portion where there had been a one-story portion. So then, in addition to that, they have double doors going out to a new porch and balcony. A new balcony with some railing. And then on the first floor, the floor plan stays the same, but they will be adding, after they've removed the existing porch on the south side, they're adding a wraparound porch, or actually covered deck porch, and then an uncovered deck as well at the back. We'll see this also in side view in a minute. And to note, they noted also new wood railing at the front steps. So here we have now the new front elevation. So the main thing that we see here is way in the back of the building is now a second floor addition on the right-hand side here, where it had been that single story piece. We also see new fencing across the front. That's the 4-foot high, and then in the back, farther back, is the 6-foot high fence. We see some screening. It's a little hard to explain at the moment. And then the railing on the balcony all the way in the back as well. But also the columns here will be wrapped with new material. And we also see new wood windows throughout the house. So now totally reversed from the back. Let's see, we see the new two-story addition added on the back here. They have it shaded slightly in a darker blue grayish color here. And that's the addition, second-story addition on the back. And remember, the double doors I mentioned out to the balcony are up here. So this is the balcony with its railing, and then down below is the deck or back porch. And all the windows are new windows. We see the 4-foot high fence in this. This is a 4-foot high fence, yes, with the 6-foot high fence on the side there. We can talk about that in plan view later. And then from the side views, so the south elevation here at the top, where we had the porch and it was to be removed, this is the new addition, second-story addition on the house here. Note that the roof line continues all the way through, so it's basically flush with the existing roof here. Let's see, anything else new here? On this side, you can see there's a horizontal wood screening across the width of the porch on the first floor. Then on the other side, now this is the side to the north, porch is on the left, and there are no new windows on this elevation, just the new addition, which also has no windows facing in this direction. Other than that, we've already talked about all the rest of the things. So they've provided some, first of all, a photograph of the existing condition with aluminum siding. They're proposing that it has aluminum siding over original wood siding. The owner proposes to keep existing aluminum siding in the front of the house and paint it. In the rear portion of the house, the siding will be replaced with painted wood. siding, and the addition will also receive painted wood siding. So photographs of some of the old windows that were here and how they're planning to replace them with these new wood windows. So some idea of the condition of the windows, that, of the old windows. Also some samples of the balcony and stair railing, the front door. Instead of looking like this on the left, it will be a new wood front door there on the right. And the wood fencing in the rear of the site is to be replaced, and rear of the site to be surrounded by new wood fencing. Might be some typos there. But the fence is lower in the primary AVC with 1 inch spacing between pickets. So it's not, the front fence will not look like this. This represents the rear portion of the fence. And now this gives you an idea of the column wrap. Currently on the left, I should make that bigger. So this photograph on the left with the dot is the current condition. It's round columns on cinder block piers. They would like to make the round columns become square, truncated, or tapered columns, instead of the round ones. So they're going to wrap the round ones with some material yet to be determined, I guess. Likely wood. And so now, with all that done, our zoning and inspections review shows that it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance and will require a building permit. The existing building permit will need to be amended to reflect the new scope of work. So they already started some of the work on the interior of the house, and so they have an existing building permit for the interior. So with this new exterior work, they'll need to amend it. So we're ready with our recommendations whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. So Chris, as the representative of the applicant, do you have anything to add at this point? If you could come up to the microphone. Yeah, thank you.
The only thing that really changed was we pulled the siding off of the lower portion of the back, aluminum siding, and want to replace that with wood now. So the whole back addition, top to bottom, would be wood siding.
Okay.
That's really the only thing that
Okay.
changed.
Including the front or not?
What's that?
Including the front?
The front of the building would stay the same, aluminum siding, all the way back to the addition.
So like on here.
So if I can slow us down for just 1 minute. Is there anyone who wants to speak either for or against the application? Okay, hearing none. Hold tight. Staff recommendations?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Hold that thought.
Public. Okay. All right. So this is for applicants Monique Taylor and Walker Group Architecture for 507 George Street. The historic property name is the Smith House. I'm going to make this bigger so you guys can all read this from your seats. And in the inventory, it's listed as built in 1900, but that would be incorrect. We verified this through the Sanborn maps that it was built after 1924, but before 1929. Nevertheless, it is still a contributing structure, and the National Register inventory description from 2003 listed as 2 stories, 2 bays wide, 3 bays deep, 2/2 sash, front porch with round posts on concrete block piers, aluminum siding, metal-clad gable front roof, and 2 exterior chimneys on the south side of the house. Sandbeck had no description of it. So for 507 George Street, the project is to include removing the existing side porch, adding a new second floor rear addition and balcony, a new rear deck, front column wraps, front handrails, front door replacement, wood replacement windows, and new fencing and gate in all of the AVCs. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. For fencing, 2.5.2. For design principles, 3.1.1, 2, 4, and 5. For modifications, 3.2.1 and 2. For additions, 3.3.1, 2, and 3. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.3 and 4. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2. For entrances, 4.4.4 and 5. For decks and patios, 4.6.2. For wood, 5.2.1 and 2. For paint, 5.4.2, 3, and 4. For paint, 5.4, wait a minute, I have that twice. Okay, I guess we're adding 5.4.6 as well. For contemporary materials, 5.5.4. And for statements of reason, based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are, 1, the project is located in a tight weave development pattern. 2, the proposal is an addition and modifications to an existing contributing structure. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include removing the existing side porch, adding a new second floor rear addition and balcony, a new rear deck, front column wraps, front handrails, front door replacement, wood replacement windows, and new fencing and gate in all AVCs with the following condition. The plan should be revised to show the location of the porch screens.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stone, you had a thought.
Well, just that you're removing all the vinyl siding except on the front of the house. I kind of,
Aluminum.
aluminum, except for the front of the house. I'm just like, trying to get my brain around why you do the entire house and
I
not.
just didn't want to do the back portion of the house with wood siding on the top and aluminum siding on the bottom of it. I wanted a line to delineate the new addition on the back of the house.
It's certainly allowed to be what's there, but just the logic of doing it all in the very front of the house. I just question.
Yeah, I mean, it's stopping at the back of the house. So it's not doing too much more area of wood siding there.
What other questions or comments do we have for Chris?
If you, and I couldn't find anywhere in the drawings where you actually specified that the low fence is X feet, 4 feet, and the tall fence is 6. I didn't see it in the drawings, but that's what,
Right here.
It's shown graphically, but you're right, it doesn't have the.
it doesn't say
I
it.
did
Just,
call
I
that
think
out.
just it's on your testimony as long as you say, I guess, modification of the final plan.
Sure, yeah. I think it's written that way. It's just not dimensioned.
And so with the fence, the 6-foot fence, where would you say it is on this sketch?
Right where that new stone paving and landscaping starts.
Okay, I wish my pointer was better. So, at the end of the gray driveway,
Yeah, about there.
okay. And so we're just missing a line across there to show it going across the green area.
Well, it wouldn't be going across the green area there. It's actually going across the green near the front of the house.
At 6 feet or 4?
It just turns to 6 feet back there at the paved area, the landscape area.
Where the tree is?
And you can see it in elevation.
Okay.
Look to one of the elevation views of the side.
Okay, oh, I have a hand. Okay,
Yeah, it's very
now
hard
there's
to
a hand
see
here.
this.
All right, so, out at the curb, you're not having any fence, right? You have a 4-foot fence out front? No.
No, the 4-foot fence starts right behind, yeah, right where your cursor is there.
So 4-foot fence here with a 4-foot gate across the driveway, 4 feet to the corner.
And then it's
4 feet.
4 feet all the way, keep going back to about there.
Okay, and then it pops up to 6 feet.
Correct.
But there's no fence across this way.
No.
Okay. All right, maybe that must be what was confusing me. So it just randomly starts there as 6 foot and then continues 6 foot all the way around, continues 6 foot all the way around, and then also 6 foot back here. And then finally, it's the house at that corner there. Okay. Everything clear?
I think so.
Okay.
Candace, did you?
Yes, on the north elevation, there, that's the side where the bump out and the new addition, proposed addition, correct? And early on, I heard there was a comment that it was really on your lot, even though it looked like it was on the adjacent lot, or the next, the lot next to it. Is there, if you're gonna add a second floor, you're not on a lot line, right? There's an appropriate setback from a property line for that?
So, the existing building is already there.
Yeah,
Right,
it
but
already is
there was a
different.
little addition, that little pop-out addition that you had mentioned earlier was
Mhm.
almost on the line, looked like it was on a neighbor's line.
Right,
Or,
let me see.
My question is only to just confirm that there is appropriate setback before we put an addition on that.
So,
Because I don't think you can put it on the line.
so the existing wall is, here I have my hand again, is along this here, and the property line is definitely less than the setback distance away. So it's already a non-conforming wall. And what he's proposing is building just on top of that exact same wall.
And
Yeah,
the
not
zoning,
expanding.
and the zoning administrator has said it's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, not expanding the footprint.
See, Tim, did you have comment, question?
So some of the original windows were removed and replaced, correct? That's what I'm reading here.
Yes, they've been replaced with temporary windows right now.
When you remove these, was there any kind of surrounding trim, exterior case, whatever you want to call it, around the actual window sash?
I have to check into that, I'm not really sure. All I know is what I've seen out on site.
I was over there this afternoon, and I really couldn't determine, what the original windows had looked like. I think the one picture that is provided here with the windows, I believe this is the window sashes from the back, and I noticed that that's actually not put in properly, which isn't your fault. It looks like it's 2 bottom sashes put together. So I'm not sure that's actually a representative photo of what it looked like originally. Again, it's been re-engineered to say the least.
Right.
So the core of my question is the window trim. It's not clear from the drawing exactly what the window trim will look like, whether there's going to be any trim.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
question?
the idea is to go around it with some trim, some wood trim.
And what I'm looking at, if you look at some of the other sample houses that Matt showed us, you'll notice what the typical window trim looks like on these houses of this period. Now, I realize that you've got a bit of an engineering challenge here in the sense that these windows have obviously been changed, and the siding was put on, and they probably ripped some of the trim off at that point.
Yeah, I think I'd like to go back with trim similar to the bottom middle photo of the context photos.
13.
Yeah, 413.
Yeah, and that's what I was focusing on. The picture to the left of that, of the one-story house, again, representative of what the trim would typically look like, and then the house across the street that's currently unoccupied. Again, another example of what the typical window trim would have looked like on this house.
Okay.
And again, I realize you've got some engineering challenges there. The trim has obviously been modified, probably when they put the siding on. So just something to think about to try to get this so it doesn't stick out too far compared to the other houses.
Right, yeah, it would be a challenge with existing aluminum siding.
Yeah.
Beating that.
And then as far as the columns are concerned, in looking at the Sanborn map from 1924, it sort of looks like the porch may have been extended a bit. Can't really tell from the Sanborn maps because can't tell how accurate they are. My opinion on the front porch is that has been modified significantly. That's not what the original porch looked like. The round columns, I think, have been cut and re-engineered. It appears that there was probably something completely different there that was holding up the porch just the way that the porch is structured. I don't have a problem with going with the boxed columns. In fact, I think that would probably be more appropriate with other houses that you would see like this.
Right.
The single column, round column, there may be some houses in a historic districts like that, but I can't recall any offhand.
And is it wood, or is it?
Yes, wood
Okay.
column wrap.
I mean, the wrap will be wood as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you gonna do tapered or just square?
I'd like to do a tapered,
Tapered.
a small taper.
Yeah, I thought I saw an illustration earlier.
It looked just square in the illustration.
Oh, did
but
it? Okay.
That's why I was.
Yeah, similar to the ones
Size
on
of the
413
columns,
as well.
A lot of tapering opportunity.
Like so.
It was the example picture I was thinking of. All right, any other questions?
Have
Come, let's go
One
ahead.
other, and it's a guideline that Matt pointed out, and I don't know how much this is practiced anymore, but in additions, let's see, 3.3.2, delineate the addition from the plane of the primary structure by creating slight offsets and corners. We've also achieved that with like a trim board, so it shows you the evolution of the house as additions have occurred, and so it's just kind of a nod to this is a new piece.
Yep, and that's the plan, is to put
Okay.
a trim and expansion like the roof, so you know that whole piece is an addition.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? We okay down here? Molly, Tony?
Yes.
All good? Okay.
You ready?
Well, I'm ready if you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, I move we find the application for 507 George Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Section 15411 to 15429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Fencing 2.5.2, design principles 3.1.1, 2, 4, and 5, modifications 3.2.1 and 2, additions 3.3.1 and 2 and 3, Walls, trim, ornamentation, 4.2.3 and 4. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2. Entrances, 4.4.4 and 5. Decks and patios, 4.6.2. Wood, 5.2.1 and 2. Paint, 5.4.2, 3, 4, and 6. Contemporary materials, 5.5.4. Statements of reason: the project is located in the tight weave development pattern. The proposal is an addition and modifications to an existing contributing structure. The proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and recommend and commented accordingly, and the project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Can we have a motion to issue a certificate of appropriateness?
So moved.
Second. And second?
Do we have a condition yet?
Well, we could if it's your motion. Would you like to?
Well, he's made the motion. There was a recommendation.
Look, well, let's just go on and clean this up where we are, and
What's that?
let's just go ahead and vote and finish this up and
Clarify that.
clarify it later. So we've got a motion for a COA and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Who was the second again? I'm sorry.
I think it was Tony.
No, for the COA, it was-
For the CO was me.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Tim, and I seconded it.
thank you. Yep, okay, got that. The clarification is just that I couldn't even tell where the screens were supposed to be on the plan, so.
Perhaps we could handle that administratively without a
That's
big
right.
to-do.
Yep.
Is that okay with you, Chris?
Yeah, should I submit a new plan to you
Yeah.
to show that? Okay.
Okay, thanks for your
Sure, that'll
cooperation.
take 10 minutes to put that line on there. Right?
All right.
Because couldn't see where the actual screens go.
All right, Matt, I think that brings us to item D,
Proxy for the fence.
all right.
404 Avenue B. Good to see you, Chris.
Right. Item D, Avenue B. 404 Avenue B, the property owner is Sarah Boyan. Boyan? How do you say? Boyan, yep. And she's provided a full application here, checked off all the good stuff, signed bottom. So, to give you an idea, this project is primarily just to add fencing all the way around the property. And she's provided a site plan here. The dark green line towards the bottom of the picture here, which starts in the lower right-hand corner of the house, goes out to the sidewalk, goes along, or the property line, goes to the left property line, which would be the southwest property corner, and then follows the west property line back to essentially the rear left corner or northwest corner, or in line with the northwest corner of the back of the house. And then from that northwest corner out to the west property line and then back around the entire 3 sides of the backyard is a 6-foot high fence. So the first one is a 3.5-foot picket fence, and the second one is a 6-foot high privacy fence. And so she's provided some images here of the picket fence, the privacy fence, the house, and again showing where the fences are going. So this is the front of the house, the side of the house at the front, side of the house on the right-hand side at the front, and then from the back corner of the house, looking out towards the street, where the fence changes from a 3-foot-high fence to a 6-foot-high fence. And then here, the rear yard showing 6-foot fence all the way around. Yes, adding a new second fence on the, right up against the neighbor's fences and building there. And then finally, it attaches back at the northeast corner of the house. All right. Then we have our zoning and inspections review of this. He signed off but didn't say, because we have no requirements for fences and zoning.
Right.
Other than for the historic district. And Chief Building Inspector says it will not require a building permit. So otherwise, I'm ready with recommendations.
Okay. Ms. Sarah, anything you want to add?
A minor amendment to where the
Wait,
privacy.
you'll need to speak a lot louder. That
Oh,
doesn't really pick
I'd
up.
like to submit an amendment to where the privacy fence starts. In the application, the initial application, it does start where the house meets. And per the findings and recommendations, I'd like to amend it to bringing it forward a little bit. So it's right behind the side entrance. And so all the utilities and all that will be behind the privacy fence.
Okay. And I see a big green arrow that points at the back of the steps and in front of the utilities. Is that
Yep.
the
right there.
correct diagram?
So you can see it kind of there.
Yep, exactly. So here, let me.
At least that's my interpretation.
So the thing is, one of the other ones shows it behind that. So that's
Okay.
the
Yep. so-
limitations that you have with doctoring of photographs. But this is the one you intend,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
to be in
this one's
front
fine.
of the fence in front of the HVAC unit, not like this one where it's shown behind it.
Correct. Yep.
I see.
Just to hide all
Very
the
good.
utilities.
Okay.
Did you have any revisions for the picket fence?
I do. I have an alternate picket fence style here to show you.
All right.
So this also has,
We have a device.
oh,
Okay, I think we're going to be passing around.
oh, of course, yes. So there's three differences. The style on the top is a change from the French Gothic
Okay.
that I initially submitted to the dog-eared, which matches the privacy fence style. It's also 4 inches shorter, so it's 3.1 inches tall rather than 3.5 inches
Okay.
tall. But most importantly, that, I went to Lowe's and measured it, is 4 inches distance between the pickets, and that new submission is 2.83 inches between the pickets
Okay.
to align with the guidelines.
Great. So we've had a couple of perhaps substantive changes to the application. Are all commissioners satisfied with the complete list of the application at this point? All right. Okay. And so we may have some public, any comments either for or against the application? Hearing none. Okay, Matt, would you like to give a recommendation, please?
Yes, 1 second.
At your convenience.
Note here. In a second. So we have picket spacing. Okay. All right. There we go. All right. So this is the application for Sarah Boyan at 404 Avenue B. The historic property name is the Willis House, built circa 1920. It is contributing in the Riverside Historic District. And the National Register inventory description from 1988 describes it as occupied in 1926 by the Willis family, carpenters Charles E. and Marshall, and building contractor Clyde C. This two-story frame triple-pile house was built between 1919 and 1924. There was further descriptions, but not relevant to a fencing project, and Sandbach had no description. So for 404 Avenue B, the project is to include new fencing in all AVCs. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. For fencing, 2.5.1, 2, and 3. For paint, 5.4.2, 3, and 4. The statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located in the tight weave development pattern. The proposal is the construction of fencing around an existing contributing structure. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include new fencing in all AVCs with the condition that the tall fencing be installed in front of the HVAC unit, which she has now since modified, so no condition recommended.
All right, very good. So commissioners, questions, comments? Seem to have an applicant who responded to some feedback during design review or applying, which is, we appreciate and usually a good thing. Pretty straightforward application. Are we ready to put forth a motion?
I'll move.
Okay.
I move to find the application for 404 Avenue B to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance Sections 15.411.15.429 and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Fencing, 2.5.1, 2, and 3. Paint, 5.4.2, 3, 4.
Oops, sorry.
And findings of fact. The project is located in the tight weave development pattern. Number 2, the proposal is construction of fencing around all existing contributing structure. Number 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. Number 4, the zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. Number 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
All righty, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Can we have a motion to issue a certificate of appropriateness?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I think Tim Thompson, yeah. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, congratulations. You have a COA.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Let's see, Matt, it doesn't appear we have any old business.
3 things. We do not have any old business.
Okay. Any general public comments? Hearing none. Well, let's just skip down to your report, Matt, HPC Administrator's report.
All right. We just report the following majors and minors have been issued.
Any questions from commissioners on recently issued majors and minors? All right. Matt, do you have any other items?
Actually, there is an upcoming Preservation NC conference coming up in October. I'm planning on attending, but can only be there for one day. I believe Annette has inquired about whether or not we have funds in our budget to help commissioners go to the conference. We're still looking into that.
Okay.
So please let me know if you might be interested. And
What are the dates?
What's that?
What are the dates, do you know, offhand?
I'll look it up on my calendar.
Or if you want to just send it, that's fine, Matt.
Okay. October 20, oh, yes, Preservation NC is October 26, 27, 28, I believe.
And the other usual question is where?
In Winston-Salem.
Winston-Salem. That's always a good trip.
Yes, yes. You find out all kinds of interesting things.
Yeah.
Like you're allowed to create work groups, or you're allowed to own your own property, HPCs, et cetera. So,
All right. Any commissioner comments? Well, with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second?
So moved.
And second.
In a second. Okay, so we stand adjourned. Guess I get the gavel.